I feel that trying to just crank stuff out, that's great if the brief calls for it and the situation calls for it. But if you're going to build something for yourself, if you're going to build your own brand, if you're going to build your own catalog, do something that's unique. Find a voice that might not be out there. Combine, Latin nylon string guitar with 9 Inch Nails beats or something that just opens up. And look, will it maybe get licensed as much as your typical top 40 hip hop? Maybe not, but I want to see something fresh and different.
What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Qs podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. If this is your first time here, welcome. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio podcast on the go, I just want to thank you for joining me today. And this episode is made possible thanks to the support of the family, friends, and patron subscribers of 52 Qs who help keep the podcast, the channel, and everything running. We are 100% community supported, so you're not going to hear any sponsored segments for mattresses or meal plans. But if you want to learn more about how you can help support 52 Qs while also unlocking extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom coaching sessions, and a ton more, then be sure to click on the links in the description for more information. One of the things we really like doing here on the channel is bringing you industry professionals, those decision makers who help get our music on TV. It's one thing to talk about the industry from a composer's perspective, but I think it's super valuable to hear from the publisher's perspective. So I'm really excited to welcome to the show Jason Moss, co-founder of Bulletproof Bear. I am so glad to be joined on the podcast by Jason Moss, partner and founder of Bulletproof Bear. Is that right? Founder, yeah?
One of 3/4. I have 3 other partners in Bullet.
Man, it is so good to have you on the show. We Zoomed before earlier, and I don't know, you just meet people and you're like, man, he's my people. And so I feel, and it's not just a beard thing either, right? It's just really, I don't know. There are people out in the industry that you just kind of resonate with, which I think it's the currency in the industry is relationship. And this is how it looks. It's not, super formal and, hello, Mr. Moss Esquire,
nice
right?
To meet you.
Right. Exactly. Robot, I am professional. It's all about being real and being authentic. And I really enjoyed our chat that we had. And so I had to bring you on the show to give the library's perspective. And that's what I really want to talk about today. But first, man, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm good. Monday, getting my ducks in a row. I appreciate you, Dave. I appreciate what you're doing. I saw some of your YouTube videos and, I wanted to connect with you because I was just kind of, look, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of guys selling stuff and, throwing down the philosophy. And then there's the guys that really know what they're talking about. And I felt when I heard you, and there's other YouTube, composer guys out there too that I like and respect, but I just connected with you. I felt like, okay, beard, no hair, click. Yeah. And, just the message and the way you were delivering your message was really authentic. And it came from a lot of heart. I could tell. And so that. I'm honored to be included in your channel.
Well, so thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. And it's all about just sharing the love. It's like there's so much music that needs to get made. And as I mentioned, relationship is still the currency of the industry. Being good is just a small part of a career. And so being able to meet new people, to kind of welcome them into your circle, and then to have you onto the show to share, like I said, the library's perspective. And so really, really valuable. And so, but before we get into that, like most publishers, I know you didn't, graduate or you didn't come out, of school or whatever going, I want to publish. Your path, was as a composer and a songwriter and all of that. Okay, before we get into, the business of being a publisher, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got there.
Yeah, I used to have hair and I wanted to be a rock star like all of us, and just did the whole band thing and the songwriting thing and moved around a lot and was trying to find my footing. When I was in college, I started interning in New York City at music houses. And so that was the first step, was getting into these commercial music houses and learning about, TV commercials. Mm-hmm. And I always loved TV commercials and I loved the short form format. And so I interned. I was like a junior peon. Then I became a peon. You kind of got higher and higher. The abuse was beautiful. Thick skin. I mean, the horrible verbally abusive stories are all true that you've heard,
Yeah. And, it could be a bumpy ride up to the top.
It was a bumpy ride. I'm still climbing. And yeah, so, was doing that. I started singing on some jingles and then pitching for demos. Then my path took me to Phoenix, Arizona. I figured big fish, small pond, because I was in New York and, doing the gigs at night, and it was just very exhausting. I wasn't moving as fast as I was hoping. And I also thought, well, if I went to Nashville or Phoenix, maybe big fish, small pond theory. And it helped. It worked. I went to Phoenix. Nashville felt more crowded. Mm-hmm. The gin blossoms were breaking. That whole desert indie rock scene was kind of coming out of there. And I was like, cool, let's do that. I had a friend that went to school out there. And things started to develop. Started doing a lot of TV commercials. I started working for an educational broadcast network, doing a lot of kids songs and documentary music, and just grew and honed my skills, and, fell down, got back up, fell down again. And then in 2000, I decided to move to LA. And I've been here ever since. First gig was pretty much pitching for the NFL Open on Fox Sports. I won it, and things started climbing from there. And I got in with Fox Sports, and, just the tenacity and the drive and the fire to meet and communicate with people and network. And, that was my path. And now I'm here with no hair. So.
And probably more gray in your beard,
Yeah,
boy, do I understand that. So what was the transition like from composer pitching, over and over to now, being a partner in an up and coming library?
Well, in about 2003, I partnered up with some other folks, and we started a company called Supersonic. It was like Supersonic Studios, Supersonic Media Group. Those partners ended up leaving a few years later. I took it over and rebranded it Supersonic Noise. And I made that my production company, and, where I funneled my work through. During that time, we did some shows, and they were custom music shows, but we were licensing the music back to the show. They weren't owning the publishing. It wasn't a work for hire. So I started building a library. And a couple of years later, I started freelancing in the LA area for jingle houses, and I started working for this one specific jingle house called Machine Head. And I ended up getting signed as a composer, an in-house, staff, or what we called a permalance composer. And through the years before, you have these tracks. We got dead tracks. We got 30s, we got 60s in the commercial world, or maybe there's a license back with a show or opportunities that you're doing an indie film. They don't have money. So you own the music and you get a little fee for doing it, but you retain the ownership. So through that, I met some people and I got educated on the music library world. Before that, even back in Phoenix, I was writing music for network music, and I did some stuff for FirstCom. And so I actually was familiar with it, but as a composer. So I started, And then building the catalog, I just realized over the time, I'm like, oh, I have 50 tracks, so I have 100 tracks. So I ended up making that the Supersonic Noise catalog. And that was the beginning of developing this library and then learning the business, learning the metadata side, learning some of the
Well, the
format
fun
side.
part.
Yeah, the fun part. I mean, it's more enjoyable to watch paint dry than do metadata. But it's really important, as you know, because your music's not going to get found if you don't have any. So through that whole process, I built this little library. And when over the years after Machine Head, I left Machine Head, that sort of folded and went away. I got more involved in TV instead of the commercial world. And I'd come in as like composer. I'd bring my catalog in and I'd be like, use my catalog. I'd be a music supervisor as well. I'd do like everything as a music department would do. And I did many, many shows in that format. Grew the catalog, brought in composers to write. I'm like, well, if I pay somebody a couple $100, that's a work for hire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not amazing money, but these days it's better than free.
Yeah.
And, so I started bringing in other talent because I didn't want the catalog to be one note,
right.
Me and my production style, whatever that is. So that's how Supersonic Noise grew. And then 2014, I met one of my business partners, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Gross. There's Andrew Gross, there's John LaCroix, Chris Davies, and myself. John and Andrew brought us together. I met Andrew at NAB, and he was involved with the PMA. I'm sure a lot of your folks know.
Oh yeah, we are very familiar with PMA. Yep.
And he brought us, I met him and I liked him and I went up to him and I started just, talking to him. And he kind of had this idea and I had this idea. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it's like, how do you compete with a few thousand tracks in a catalog, 2,000 tracks, 1,000 tracks with the killer tracks and APM and, Jingle Punks at the time. And you can't, you're small. You don't have the amount of music to go into a network and service a network. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can service a show, but really you can't because you need so much, especially reality TV. There's 100 tracks and, a 1 hour, 45-minute show.
And they're not even going to talk to you unless you have tens of thousands tracks in the catalog. Is that right?
I mean, they'll talk to you if, let's say you have a real specialty catalog and you specialize in like, Latin music or jazz. Sure, they'll talk to you, but it's like you can't cover everything. You need drama and tension and indie rock and quirky this and TikTok that.
Yeah.
So we came together as a group to say, let's bring our catalogs together and form a company, and the company will be the tree trunk. Essentially, Bulletproof Bear is the tree trunk, and the labels are the tree branches.
Gotcha.
And like APM or like other catalogs that represent other labels. Right. So Bulletproof Bear is a production music catalog. We represent exclusively. We don't retitle. We don't do any shady shit. We don't give half of the production company half of our publishing. We are transparent and authentic, composer centric. We have a couple of other little specialty things we've built into our deals that are exclusive or special to us that even help compensate our labels and composers even more so than your traditional 50-50 type of label representation deal. Because we're all composers.
Yeah.
Andrew's a film composer. Now he's more of a music supervisor. John is a composer and was a touring musician. And John's expertise is licensing and international. He's brilliant with that side of things. Our other partner, Chris, came from more of the record label world and is just a great business guy. So that's how Bulletproof Bear got started.
Gotcha. So independent. So if I'm hearing this, and I imagine there are other folks out there hearing this, and you say you have a catalog. nearly every cue I've ever written has gone out to a publisher or so for a library. So if somebody's listening right now and they don't have anything that's not placed, should they look at like creating a catalog of their own stuff, or is that kind of not really how it can be done now? Or you kind of understand what I'm saying? Because I don't have, like, I can count on one hand the number of cues that don't have a home somewhere, because I'm in such a order comes in, I fill the order and ship it out, right?
Yeah. That's a great question, because there's two ways of doing this. And I have a very close friend and collaborator that co-writes with me. He writes for my catalog. When I'm on a TV series, I ask him to come in and write some cues for me or with me. He writes for everybody. Mm-hmm. He writes for, Universal, Megatrax, does very well. I've asked him, and do your own catalog. Like, come on, man. And he's got stuff on the side. But that's what I encourage. I mean, look, if you have these connections with the top tier catalogs and you're getting paid really well, you're getting paid a good, let's just say $500 to $1,000 a cue. And, for these big catalogs like the BMGs and the Universals, they could afford that. Mm-hmm. I personally can't, but I don't have those budgets, and I'm not, I don't have millions of dollars invested in us. And, we're a scrappy little independent company. Then you're looking for that upfront money, and their distribution's amazing. They got a sales team of 20, 30 people. It's kind of hard for you to say, well, I'm going to build my own catalog when you're busy and you're working and you're making decent money.
Yeah.
But I think those composers are the tip of the iceberg. There's maybe 1% of the guys that are making a great living at production music, making $500 to $1,000 a cue, or $750 to $1,000 a cue, or maybe more if it's an orchestral cue and you have a great reputation and you're a big shot. You can command maybe $1,500. Yeah. So getting in there is hard, and let's face it, our industry is overpopulated right now. Everybody's composing amazing music in their bathroom, and it's like there's a lot of stuff coming at us. So if you're one of those guys, it's hard for you to be like, well, I'm going to take the time to build a catalog that's going to take a year or 2 or 3 to really start seeing any profit.
Yeah. Because you got bills to pay now.
You got bills to pay now. But if you can kind of do it at the same time, because the fact that you said that, I've actually encouraged, and I have guys in Bulletproof Bear that have started to build their own catalog, because they send me music and I'm like, this is really good, but I'm not going to sign one album because we represent catalogs. We will bring in an album if it's exceptional. We'll bring in artist album, vocal material stuff. But if I get another tension hip hop album, I don't need that.
Yeah.
If you sent me the most amazing live, Cuban Latin jazz album, I'd sign that in a minute. You know what I mean? So I have encouraged, and I have guys that started with 4 albums. Then every quarter we ingest new music. So maybe they'll do another album. Then by the end of the year, maybe they got 8 or 10 albums. And to me, you're building a future for yourself that you own the publishing, you own that IP, you can control it. You can, if you're not happy with our services after a few years, you can go to another library and say, would you rep my catalog? I just feel that's another avenue of the pie that is great for composers if they have the time and the wherewithal to do that. It's a lot of work.
So to your point, so if you bring, a composer along with a catalog and you rep their catalog, even though it's exclusive, there's verbiage in the paperwork that if after X amount of time or X number of sales or whatever, the composer can kind of carry that with them along the way. You're not assuming copyright on those tracks.
Okay. The way we work and most of the traditional bigger libraries work is we sign it exclusively for 3 years.
Okay.
Now I've heard you talk on your channel, guys, you get the music. It takes a month or 2 to get it digested on your local source audio site. It takes another month or 2 to get it distributed here. You got international clients. I have, SoundMouse, Harvest, Source Audio, individual network sites, international partners. It takes almost 6 months to 8 months to get that new music, especially for us, if we're ingesting 3 to 8,000 tracks a quarter out, then they got to get it into their system.
Yep.
Then they got to check it out. And then they got to get a brief. And then they got to send a playlist, 100 playlists. Then somebody has to like that one track of yours. Then it has to go on a cue sheet. You're talking 2 years.
Yeah.
Most guys, I mean, hey, 3 months after I've ingested the album, hey, any hits? It's like, I love you. I know these are your babies. This is important to everybody, whether you got one track or 10,000 tracks. These are your babies. You're sitting there with your dream in your studio. Just, there is no better high than hearing a track of yours on a TV or a film or whatever.
Never gets old. Yep.
I don't care if it's a freaking Food Network show or it's, major stuff. It's amazing. And it's really a source of pride for us. But it just takes a long time. So it really, so for us, some catalogs will be like, if we don't license it within a certain period, you get it back. We don't do those kinds of things. It's 3 years, usually a year post collection, which is like, something a lot of catalogs do. And, we just go out there and get it out there. We all are hustling. We are knocking on doors. We get show slates. We have relationships. We work in advertising. We work in TV, documentary. Look, it could be the guy's cat video on YouTube. We'll license.
Yeah.
We're not the royalty free, which I personally feel is crap. And I feel is, disrespectful to most composers.
It can be a little bit of a race to the bottom. In some of those marketplaces, yeah.
And that's my opinion. And let me just preface, these are my opinions. I'm not a doctor or an attorney.
And don't necessarily represent those of Dave and 52 Qs, blah, 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 blah.
I want to treat my music with respect. One title, it stays in one place and I'm not retitling it. Plus, we're also getting on the retitling thing and the royalty-free thing. We're getting info and contracts from our networks that they won't accept these music.
Content ID and everything is about to make, it's already kind of a problem and it's only going to get, as the algorithms get more and more sophisticated and I don't, personally, this is my crystal ball. I don't see like non-exclusive retitling type libraries lasting like 10 years. I'd be really happy. I just don't know how they can. Not in the current the way that collections and royalties are going. I don't see how they can survive in the AI algorithm sound tune sat era,
Yeah, we have a lot of daggers being thrown at us as composers. It's challenging, and AI is, that's a whole nother topic. Retitling, a lack of any sort of real organized union and representation. Yep. There's a lot of talk about that, and there's, right now we're having this strike in Hollywood with the writers, directors, and actors could be next. Things I had lunch Friday with a head of music for a big production company. Mm-hmm. They're got like a couple of shows.
Yeah.
And there's crickets. And so things are very challenging right now, and budgets are tighter. Everybody's squeezing us. We have to do gratis deals with a lot of networks to represent the bulk of our blanket deals because they don't want to pay.
Yeah.
And how are we going to make any money for our composers if we say no to those? We have to be open to that. We still always lead with, hey, what do you have
right
for a budget?
And we're not even talking about, hiring musicians to play on your tracks. And, there's a reason that all these sample libraries are so profitable is because us composers, we can't afford, at least us picking the lowest hanging fruit, right? We can't afford to just go hire a bunch of string players. We don't have the luxury of being even in the town where that's even feasible. Orlando has some really talented people, but it's not LA.
And you could even hire them over Zoom or through, collaborative. Yeah. But the thing is you're right, because these budgets and the time frames are like, I need something in 3 or 4 days, like a TV commercial. Yeah. It's like, they want a few demos. You don't know if who you're competing against. You got a few days to do it. The tools are amazing, and the tools are for us. And let's not forget, these tools, the end client doesn't know you're using Native Instruments or Spectrasonics, or,
right.
If you can take those tools and make them your own and use them with authenticity and heart, and, try your best to play and understand chords and melody and not just do wallpaper. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that client just wants something that emotes what they're looking for their product,
Right.
per project. And they don't care if you're using, I mean, you'd be hard pressed, in my opinion, to tell if I'm using fake drums or real drums.
Yeah.
But that's, I've honed my skills.
Yeah.
If you want to call it.
And what you said kind of brings up another point, and that is the concept of originality versus uniqueness in a production music space. When so much of the time we'll see a brief and a library is putting an album together of dramedy cues or tension cues or percolating investigation cues or whatever. And by definition, each cue has to fit within a mood or motion mold. And so my theory, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, is that libraries aren't necessarily looking for mold-breaking originality as much as they're looking for composers with a more unique voice. I could be off base there, but can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, okay, I can only speak for what I like. I hate boring wallpaper, production music.
Right.
To me, this is music. And this should be as creatively diverse and deep and artistic as anything you hear on the radio or you see on a film. So, I have enough hip hop tension and comedy pits, staccato strings, and acoustic sunny stomp-ish. You can shake it. I mean, your head's going to explode. I want to hear an artist. I mean, I want to hear things that are out of the box and quirky, especially in the advertising world. They are very progressive in the sense of their tastes of what they're looking for ads. They're usually very, eccentric and indie and underground and interesting noises and textures and percussions. It's just not. So I agree. I think I agree with you. Is what you're saying is I want to hear more soul and heart and originality than I want to hear this brief. We don't put out briefs that we're looking for albums like that. I'm sure a lot of catalogs, and I can't speak for how any of these other folks do it. Maybe they're looking for real basic style stuff, wallpaper. Of course, my thought is you can make this track as quirky and big and amazing as possible, and then you could always strip it down in your alt mixes.
Yeah.
So you can take out that melody. You can just do the drum and bass, which half the time they're going to want to use anyway.
Yeah.
It
begs the question though, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate. And sure. From a composing standpoint, I'm looking at needing to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cues in play. 1,000 cues is my personal goal. I'm up to about 700. And the difference between the artist making an album is they might crank out 1 or 2 albums, maybe a year, and they're going to pour their creative soul into that. But we're not asking, a David Bowie, if we're going, if you want to go top shelf of popular artists, we're not asking David Bowie to crank out, 700 tracks or 300 songs a year. Right. So how do you balance that? How do you balance originality, uniqueness with still there is a part of this which is a factory job?
So my philosophy is always less is more. And I would rather have quality over quantity. Like for supersonic noise, when I was growing this and building that, I was always looking for an angle from, I want to make my song titles as outrageous and great as possible, to the music that was in there, that it was quirky and funny music if I'm doing ukulele music, but I just wanted to, I wanted to have personality. I I want sprinkles. A client used the term sprinkles with me once, and it stuck.
Yeah,
I want to hear ear candy come in and out. I want to hear dynamics. I want to hear beats that might not be associated with, ukulele music. I want to just hear somebody push the envelope a little bit. But then you can take all that stuff out and just have the couple of ukuleles, and it's just traditional ukulele music. So, I feel that trying to just crank stuff out, that's great if the brief calls for it and the situation calls for it. But if you're going to build something for yourself, if you're going to build your own brand, if you're going to build your own catalog, do something that's unique. Find a voice that might not be out there, combine, Latin nylon string guitar with 9 Inch Nails beats or something that just opens up. And look, will it maybe get licensed as much as your typical top 40 hip hop? Maybe not, but I want to see something fresh and different.
Yeah.
And, some of our catalogs are really unique and fresh and different. And some of them are a meat and potatoes catalog. Some of them specialize more in documentary underscore. Some just do mostly orchestral, but they do it really well.
So that makes perfect sense. And I think that's, the production music gig is squarely at the intersection of art and commerce, and so balancing that, it's a real balancing act that I find, and I still almost daily struggle with it. And so I love getting different perspectives of it. I've talked on the show how, this isn't art with a capital A, because I don't think anything that I can do in my studio should be even whispered in the same breath as David Bowie. But on the other hand,
I don't agree. It has to. Yeah, it has to be. I mean, this is the thing too. It's like, I feel like what we have to push the boundaries of our music, and we are as much artists. The thing that's crazy is who gets asked to write a comedy cue, an orchestral cue, a thrash metal cue in the same week? I mean, for us to do that and do that well, and I'm not saying I do, but some people can, and some people are like, look, man, I'm only playing guitar.
You're right. But you've done a ton of sports stuff. And so, it's like, that's an insatiable beast, and they want everything. They always want something new, but yet it still has to live in the world that they're already super familiar with. And so as somebody who's done a bunch of sports cues, the dichotomy this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, this is the craziest, beautiful business. It's unlike anything else in the music industry. And that's why it's my little corner of the world opinion, you're out there and more, I get hit up a lot, but you're communicating even more so with composers and stuff even than I am. And you're also working actively with other, catalogs. I can't, the last time I wrote for another catalog, why would I do that?
And to that, let's change gears a little bit, because I do know that people will submit their music to you, and you've gotten composer submissions. I'm sure you probably deal with them on the daily, and so you've seen a lot of submissions come your way. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that, giving us the library perspective, and let's talk about pitches. Do you have any pet peeves or some things that you're just like chef's kiss when an email comes in or a pitch comes in? What do you see composers doing consistently right and maybe consistently wrong in the pitches that come across your desk?
Okay. Let's go with wrong first.
Okay.
Yo, check out my beats.
Yep.
There's a link. And I go and it's like beat for $9.99.
Oh, they're trying to sell and that's
it's like they're showing me their beats. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to license and they're bringing me to a website that people pay for. It's like, let's communicate effectively, do a little research on us. I mean, just no contact information. One of my pet peeves on websites for music industry is let's go to a website, no human face, no bio, no heart, no soul. Here's some sample of music. Here's our clients. I want to know who I'm doing business with. And I want to know who I'm doing business with as a composer. some of the things that people do right is like, hey, I've checked out your library. Look, our Bulletproof Bear is open. You can check it out.
Yeah, we'll have links to that in the description and everything.
It's an open site. I think that's just easy for people to check out. Some of the music's exceptional. Some of it's not that good. I mean, some of my stuff that I did 20 years ago downright sucks. But I'm going to put it in there,
Why not?
Because, I mean, look, I had a cue used for an NBC promo that was, literally one of the first cues I wrote back when I started doing TV commercials. I just had a track licensed in some sort of film or documentary. That was the first piece of music I think I ever wrote back in Arizona. I mean, it got licensed. Are you kidding me? I'm like, I can't even listen to it myself without cringing, but somebody liked it.
And you don't know what sort of alchemy they put into the metadata to pop it up, and then that,
we don't weight any of our catalogs, and we don't weight any of our metadata. What you find is what you get when you do a search based on metadata, not based on we want to weight one catalog over another.
Right.
We don't do that.
Right.
When I'm pitching for my client, I don't care if it's my music or anybody's music in Bullet. I just want it to be the best music,
right?
Because that's the way you keep clients. It's not get rid of the ego, man. It's like, it's about the music and the client. And if they're happy, I'm happy.
All right. So unprofessional communication.
I think, it's like, the good emails are like, hey, I've done some research. I think maybe your catalog is lacking in some of it's a little typical and a little like, it could be, AI email
form letter or something.
Yeah. But hey, okay, fine. I'll check it out. It's just, again, what I'm hearing mostly is music that's just very basic, and the production is okay. It stays in, it's, is it all splice? Is it splice? Is the sample library?
Yeah, the loops and stuff. Yeah.
Is it just, pretty, it's, there's no chord changes. And there doesn't have to be. I have plenty of music that stays in E minor, but
is that a choice, or is that just because you lack the skills to do any harmonic movement? Right.
I lack the skills for any harmonic. I mean, my skills are a rock kid from Jersey. But no, right. In general, it's like, if I'm staying in a key for a 1 minute cue, I'm taking you on a roller coaster ride on the production side. It might, and there's going to be things that come in and out. But a lot of the music that I hear is very wallpaper, very basic. Choice of samples are always, I always say spend money on the best stuff, because this is, taste and production. For me, it's all about the mood. See, it's not really about the melody or the chord changes. Music's music. It's about the vibe and the mood. And that's what I feel for me is going to sell better to the client than, why did you go from that chord to that chord? Right. They don't care about that.
Right.
They want the energy. So I'm always listening to quality of production, the solicitation. It's like, just give me a little information about yourself. Be open. Don't be cool. We don't need to be cool. We're all music geeks. Don't be like, yo, check out my beats.
Yeah.
Say, hey, tell me something that I can connect with on a heart level.
Yeah, like a level of professionalism without being like stuffy. That's the line I try to ride.
I'm just a dude. I'm just a composer like everybody else. Hustling like everybody else. It doesn't get any easier. I think in some ways it gets harder when you get to positions that, you and I are in, when you're able to make a living off this. And I think it's just be real.
Yeah.
And be, put a little information in there so I can connect with you. Yeah.
Realizing that it's a real human being on the other side of this email, especially a company like Bulletproof, it's, if you were to send an email to one of the big libraries like Warner Chappell, those, I'm not sure, they get so many submissions, but if you're going to a really laser focused boutique library, if you will, then you can expect, I think, a human being to open it. Open that email.
Yeah, I check everything out. Sometimes I can't respond. Sometimes I forget. I get overwhelmed, or I get, my head's got a million different things happening. I usually say, hey, we'll check it out. The team will check it out. If somebody gets back to you, great. If nobody gets back to you, we're obviously not interested.
Mm-hmm.
We're not signing as much stuff right this minute because we've just done some big signings with a big German catalog that just had almost 300 albums are coming into us. I just signed a hip hop vocal label. So we have a lot of stuff, and we're probably going to be between 160 and 200,000 overall queues. That's bigger than a lot of the big guys.
Yeah.
And again, this is exclusive internationally, just goes to our sub publishers. So it's like, unless this album is going to be amazing or it's a great artist album with amazing vocals, it's hard for me to want to bring in another tension album.
Yeah.
If it's an exceptional trailer album. And again, we don't do singles. So I need 8 to 10 tracks, 8 to 15 tracks as an album. If you don't have that, and again, a lot of these catalogs too, they have briefs that they send out to their composers. They're not taking in new material. They have a whiteboard. We're going to do trailer epic 1, trailer epic vocal, and they probably set a budget for the year. We don't really operate like that. Also, where are the ladies? We need more ladies and women and we need the rainbow.
Yeah.
It's such a dude fest. It's like there's no diversity. And for us as a catalog, we need to represent everybody.
Yeah.
And
all of the different perspectives. Yeah.
Everybody, all the different perspectives. And I'm not seeing enough of that. And that's important to me.
Yeah. No, I think it's absolutely. Yeah. And we've had, women on the podcast before, Anne Catherine Dern, really spoke to that. She's out in LA, like speaking truth to power and fighting the good fight, against myriad issues. And so I know that she would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, if there is one thing that you wish composers kind of knew from being a composer to running a library and dealing with submissions, and maybe we've touched on it before, what would that be? Would it be the don't be basic? I do such like a slang, basic. Yeah. But and if so, what are some of the ways that composers can really kind of elevate their track? I realized I started asking you one question and then pivoted to another question.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the music's concerned, just find your own voice, do something, just try and, like anything, because, production music composers probably are also wanting to be artists in some way, right? Yeah. Or maybe they are. I mean, half of my buddies that are artists or touring musicians, they want to do production music. They want to get stuff licensed, right? They're on the road being rock stars, doing major albums. And I'm just like, wow, how freaking amazing. And they're like, hey, dude, what can I write?
Yeah, they want some mailbox money.
I'm like, you want to write? Okay, you want to write for me? So I think it's like, find your voice, find things that are interesting, try and just be a little experimental when it comes to things that you think are pretty basic, like tension hip hop. How can we do tension hip hop differently? That's really interesting. And production quality to me is more important than the chord choices.
Yeah.
So that's one thing on the musical side, but on the business side, I mean, this is huge because it's like, understand what exclusive and non-exclusive is. Understand the repercussions of what going non-exclusive is with catalogs and what the benefits are going exclusive with a catalog. You can only get your music through me. And I want to rep this authentically and be like, dude, my music that you get through us is special. I got great artists, I got great libraries, and you can only get it through me. And if you want some badass stuff, stuff that's not overplayed and over abused. I mean, don't forget, the big catalogs out there, that stuff gets used and abused. We're a small guy. So, I think we have a fresher take on some things. But I feel like understanding what you're publishing and your writers, understanding these contracts, understanding what a work for hire agreement is, understanding how metadata works and how the international sub-publishing system works. Because if I'm representing your music, I'm taking a little piece, and then if it goes overseas, they're going to take a little piece. You're not going to make as big a piece of pie, but understand 25% or 50% or whatever that is better than 0%.
Right. Yeah. Having a small slice of pie is better than being without pie.
And I don't want to give my publishing away. Well, then there's I'm a publisher. How am I going to make money if everybody is doing gratis deals?
Yep.
Or instead of $1,000 a drop for a cue, it's now $200. And so our business, by the way, is a term. We represent that music. We don't own the music that we represent. It's with a letter of redirection, a letter of direction that we work with the PRO, that publishing will come to us, and then we distribute the money out to our clients. They have to understand what a letter of direction is.
Yeah.
So
so much of this are topics we've talked about. And so if you're curious, just go to the 52Qs YouTube page, Google or search for any of these topics. We've talked metadata, we've talked contract, work for hire. Right. But I've actually made some notes doing a show on exclusive versus non-exclusive and what that means. And so this is all super, super, super helpful. Well, Jason, I'm really, really excited. And listeners and viewers, if you really like Jason's vibe, and if you're like me, you're not I don't know, he's just like he's our people, right? If this is feeling like something that maybe you want to check out, then head over to bulletproofbear.com. But just know that he's not looking for one or two at a timer. He's they're looking for professional folks who are ready, who have music and can produce. So just be honest with yourself. If you're not there yet, that's fine. That's totally cool. Let's work towards getting there. And speaking of working towards getting there, I'm really thrilled that Jason has agreed to be our workshop for the month of August. And so this is coming up in just a couple of weeks, August 28th. Jason is going to be joining us over for the friends and family of 52Qs, and he's going to be doing a cue review. So he's going to be reviewing your cues, not to sign them to the library or anything, but just to give a music library, a publishing perspective on your cue. So if you're a member of the 52Qs family or friends, that is going to be for you, and that is on August 28th. Yes. And Jason is going to be listening to your cues and giving candid, unfiltered responses from the library perspectives. But Jason, thank you so much for joining me today, my man. It was so good hanging out. And looking forward to seeing whatever comes next for you, man. Once again, a huge word of thanks to Jason for joining me on today's podcast. And like we said, we're going to have a link to Bulletproof Bear in the description, or you can go to bulletproofbear.com. And like he mentioned, they do take submissions. So if you think you're a fit, then go pitch your music. Go pitch your music. So that's going to do it for us today. Again, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patron subscribers of 52Qs who help keep all of this going. If you want to join us, then click on the links in the description or head over to 52Qs.com. You definitely want to tune in next week, where we are doing our first live Q&A. That is next week. That is August 24th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Eastern. That will be right here, live and open to all of YouTube. And so if you have questions about the industry and want to join me, then that is next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern for 52Qs Q&A live, and hope to see you. But again, that's going to do it for me. I hope you've had a fantastic week, and just know, friends, that I believe and trust that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52Qs.com.